They're
Well, Zara,
beautiful.
welcome. I kind of just jumped right in. Welcome to the Revitalize Womanhood podcast. Thank you so much for being here with me.
Thank you for having me, Gina. I appreciate it.
Yes, I'm coming in hot from Alaska. My listeners know this is actually my first of what will hopefully be many interviews on the road. We've decided to start traveling again long term. So you are the first. So hopefully it's without too many kinks and hitches and
I always say it's part of the adventure.
it is. It is. It's all about the life. And that's
Yeah.
perfectly goes into what we're going to talk about today. And that is finding your happiness, right? And
Mhm.
it's honestly, I was so connected with your book because I, I started this women's community back last July, actually, in Alaska. So this is my 1 year anniversary. The women's community launched in October. And since then, I've been on my own journey of, discovery, self discovery, and being curious about all of this new information that I'm taking in. And what I've come to find out is
Mm.
I absolutely love the foundation of mindset and self confidence. I think those are the two
Yeah,
pillars that we stand on for a solid foundation in a happy life, a fulfilled life.
I completely agree. I've always said, you live half a life if you don't work on your confidence. And then if
Yeah.
you don't work on your mindset, it's very hard to actually achieve a life where you're happy, healthy, successful, wealthy, in whatever ways you need to be or wish to be.
Right. Would you please introduce yourself to my audience and tell us about the journey that you've been on to get you to writing this amazing book?
Oh, sure. Well, my name is Zahra Karsan. I'm an author and a success coach, and I'm the CEO of a company called Get Zen and the creator of the Rewire mindset system, which is really a methodology to retrain your mindset for long-term change. I have a background in neuroscience, psychology, positive psychology, and really everything human behavior related, because that was my fascination. I had a 25-year career in consulting where delivering successful results became second nature. I mastered that whole world, and part of that whole world includes understanding your barriers to success. So, really understanding what are the things that could stop you or have you fail. And I think it's so important whether you're starting a new diet or starting a new life plan or starting a new career to figure out where are the things that you could get stopped or slowed down and then manage for those. Have a plan to say, oh, I knew this was going to come up. Now it's here. Now, what am I going to do? Instead of just stopping. And most of us just get stopped in life. And so I really became fascinated with what is it that separates the really happy people from the rest of the masses that are pretty stressed and anxious from one day to the next, living from paycheck to paycheck. And when I think of happy people, I think of those people that had that little sparkle in their eye, like they knew the secrets that the rest of us were trying to figure out for so many years. And then as I also did that, I was trying to study really successful people, like what separates most people from those very few at the top, in the top 1% or whatever, that have a really huge vision for their life. Like what made it okay for them to say, I can go after this big lofty goal and achieve this level of wealth or this quality of life or whatever that bigness was for them. And I really just made it my mission to understand that gap and what is it that takes us from getting stuck to achieving a life that we can really be excited about. I don't like to think of things as financial stability. I like to think of it as financial freedom and financial excitement because I want a life where I can book as many holidays as I want, where my work feels like a holiday and where I wake up feeling inspired and excited every day. And so after my consulting work, I built a coaching practice and I started seeing these amazing transformations in my clients. And I thought, I want to understand the science behind this. So I went off to study neuroscience, which is, the study of the brain and the central nervous system. Like I wanted to understand where thoughts and behaviors and feelings were actually housed and how they were processed in our body, in our physical bodies. And then I wanted to understand the mental and emotional processes so that I could really help people start to coach themselves and shift mindset. And what happened was, once I started studying neuroscience and positive psychology and the studies of the subconscious, all of that science started confirming everything I was seeing in my clinical practice. And so I thought, this is really interesting. I was searching for many years for a way to teach people how to coach themselves. And I thought, okay, this is a book. I'm going to turn this into a system. It'll be a 6-week system because we know through neuroplasticity, it actually takes 6 weeks to show lasting signs of change in the brain. And so I thought I'll create a 6-week system and teach people the tools so that they can shift their mindset, be happier, healthier, wiser, wealthier, and really have a life that excites them. And that's how the book 6 Weeks to Happy was born. So I'm very excited to be here today.
Yeah, and actually it's interesting because as I started reading it, I was asking you questions in my head as I was reading it and writing them down. And as I got further into the book, you were answering them, which to me means that this book is so applicable to everyone in everyday life because you answered the questions I had. Whereas some books, you ask these questions and it's like, well, now I'm left with more questions, right?
Yeah.
But you got
Yeah.
into it. You started getting into it. And I love this. And actually, I've decided, and I'll talk to you about this later, but I've decided to use this. So in my community, we have monthly topics. And each month, I have a different book that goes along with that monthly topic. And I've been wanting to get into accountability. And that's what kind of came up with this personal accountability with you. But then as I got into this book, I'm like, no, we need a whole month for defining happiness. Like,
Yes.
and I love it. So I'm going to actually get into your workbook and see what I can do there because I want to get into defining happiness. It's so complex. Everybody thinks that it is once I have this, I'll be happy. Once I do this,
Yes.
I'll be happy. Once this happens in my life, I'll be happy. It's like, not necessarily. And just because this person's happy with one thing doesn't mean I'm going to be happy with it. So
Yes.
where do you start? Like if someone comes to you, brand new baby to the world of mindset coaching or anything, right? Where do you start by saying, let's define happiness?
Well, that's a great question. And you already touched on the answer, which is it's a really unique formula. Everyone has a different personal recipe, a personal formula for happiness and success. And we touched on the other point, which is that most people chase success in terms of goals. And so we're given a very basic set of instructions to enter this life with, do well in school, be a good student, be a good human. And then it's, pick a major, choose a college or university, get through that, then pick a career. And at some point, you're going to have the house, the car, the job, the kids, the dog, or whatever, and somehow happiness will show up at some point. And when it doesn't, we're all kind of shocked. And I think the reason that is because, as I found out in my coaching practice, people come to me with a gap in either their happiness or their goals or their success or their family relationships or their love relationship. And it's my job to step into their world and try and uncover where they might be blocked and then help put a plan in place to get them from where they are now to where they want to be. And what I realized is as we started that exercise, most people couldn't actually tell me what made them happy. And I was so shocked by this. Like, it was so profound that I realized most people don't actually get asked, what are the things that really inspire you or excite you? What makes you feel peaceful? What makes you feel blissful? What makes you feel joy? And so I realized, wow, most people come into this life with these goalposts, these milestones. And so we're chasing goals because we think success and happiness are synonymous, but they're not. And so in my view, defining happiness includes obviously being in an optimal state of well-being and health, because without your health, you have nothing. If you're in a lot of chronic pain, it's very difficult to get through the day-to-day. But also, it's being in charge of your thoughts, your feelings, and your behavior so that you can intentionally go through your day and have it unfold easily, because that's the secret to a beautiful life, is that it feels peaceful and joyful and easy and effortless. Most of us wake up and we're on autopilot all the time. So we wake up and by the time we're walking to the kitchen or we're walking to the shower, however you start your day, you're already starting to feel the exhaustion. You're already starting to feel the stress creep in, the anxiety for the day. What do we have to accomplish? Oh my God, how am I going to get used to it all? How am I going to get through it all? And then the thoughts and the feelings and the emotions all start to bundle together. and you go into autopilot mode. You're already stressed. You're already worried about your day. Well, if you could start your day by having rewired your brain and start your day intentionally and say, today's going to be amazing. I know I'm going to be able to accomplish anything I set my mind to. What are my three major things? What do I need to focus on the most today? And what am I okay with letting drop off? And so you're already starting your day in a whole new, shifted mindset in terms of like, what do I want to really do? So it's much more intentional. And that's the secret to the Rewire mindset system that is the methodology that underpins the book, 6 Weeks to Happy. And then as part of that, I wanted to make sure I also captured what are the real barriers to success for most people? Where do most people fail? And so we cover that off in week 1 of the 6-week program because, in my consulting world for over 20 years, unless you're figuring out and planning for the things that could derail you, how will you ever be able to achieve happiness or whatever it is your end goal is, unless you know how to address it when it comes up? So we cover that all in week 1. And I've come up with a new, fun, and engaging way for your audience to actually play with it and to step into what are these old belief patterns that are pulling me back, that are stopping me and keeping me stuck. And it's called the life block quiz. So I call them life blocks. And these are, unconscious patterns that show up early on in life and start as a coping strategy, and then they become your life strategy. So early on in life, you might have been exposed to situations where you were alone a lot, but you didn't want to be alone. You felt disconnected from others. And so the story "I'm alone in the world" plays for a lot of people, but we don't really know how to address it. And so how that shows up in your life later is, well, that's not the end of your story. So if you were alone in life early on, you learn how to turn that into a strength. So you learn how to become resourceful and resilient, and you learn how to navigate tricky situations because you had to do it because you were alone.
Yeah.
And so now a coping strategy becomes a life strategy, but in there are steps towards healthy development or unhealthy development. And so then we take you through that whole series of steps to be able to actually master your archetype. So the life block quiz is really fun because it's a free quiz that you can take online, and it pulls out your top animal archetype. So it's kind of a fun and engaging way. Like, are you a cheetah? Are you a stallion? Are you a bull? And it sort of describes your personality and your behaviors and how you behave when you're triggered because of past trauma. And again, it all showed up in patterns for me. And so it's a fun and engaging way to have people find their unconscious patterns and what might be stopping them. And then we work with you to sort of unlock and uncover and heal those parts of yourself so that you can really step into a more powerful mindset. And it's so fun.
I took it. I'm the stallion.
Oh, you did? Fantastic.
I did. I took it. I am the stallion. And actually, it does. Hang on, I got a little echo here. It did like resonate with me. I was always, I don't know if middle child really plays a part in anything. I have there's 8 kids in my family. So I am 4th of 8. Same. Holy cow. Yeah. So I was just, I don't necessarily, I know my parents, they are so loving and so sweet, but there was just so many of us, right? So I don't think it wasn't like an intentional, I don't love you. It wasn't neglect. It was just, there were so many of us. So I just found my own way, and I would go and explore, and I would leave the house, and I would just be so independent, right? And that did create this into my adulthood. Like, I'm just going to figure it out. Like, I can figure this out. I can do this on my own. I can go travel. I can go do things. I don't have to have a perfect situation to make something work for me. I can work with whatever I'm handed, right? That kind of a thing. So it did brought out this kind of archetype. But I wanted to ask you, like, getting into the family of origin and our childhood things, how deep do you find that you have to dig and unlock to, okay, so say I have the stay-at-home mom, right? The stay-at-home mom, working father, 9 to 5 working father, stay-at-home mom. I mean, we lived off the garden, we lived off hand-me-downs, whatever. So for me, what was presented as what was actually happiness was being a stay-at-home mom, having kids, taking care of my family, right? I wasn't shown to be an entrepreneur. I wasn't shown to be a businesswoman. I wasn't shown to be, right? So my views of what that looked like. So, and not me personally, but so I think some women, because you talked about people not being able to define what happiness even is for them, like not being able to even say what they want out of life.
Yes.
I think
Hmm.
that happens a lot, especially in women, because we are just shown a very, and obviously this is a huge generalization, but the women that I work with that come to me in my community, that's what we've been shown. So
Yes.
when I meet these other women and I have these talks and we talk about their aha moment or their breakdown or breakthrough, where they are standing there at the pile of laundry looking at their life going, this can't be all there is, right?
Yes.
But and then they feel guilty about that because they've been told this is all they should want. This is the definition of happiness. It's
Yes.
like, how do you get so deep into unlocking that family of origin, right? Is that the right question?
Yeah, well, you touched on many things there. So I think women, first of all, are socialized to be caregivers. We're socialized to be nurturers. And there's so many metaphors and examples of this, but we're taught to feed our family before ourselves kind of thing. And men are just socialized a little bit differently. They get to be separate, they get to be compartmentalized. We have to be all things. And so whether you're a stay-at-home mom or a working mom, they're both working moms in my mind because I have been
Right.
around children there. It's a full-time job. It takes a lot of stamina, it takes a lot of time and energy. And so whether you're leaving to go to a day job or you're working from home, we are socialized to not put ourselves first and to not think of ourselves. But what ends up happening is you're constantly giving them from an empty cup because you haven't figured out who you authentically are. You haven't figured out, what are the things that make you happy. If you are happy being a stay-at-home mom, that's great. But if you're only given a particular example of what, womanhood should be or what a mother should be or what your choices of vocation are, then you construct this subconscious pattern. If you can imagine like walking into a home, except the home is all of your subconscious, they're like imaginary walls, if you will. And so as a coach, it's my job to get into your model of the world to understand where these walls were constructed so that I can help you pull them down and then help you better understand yourself. And where you start is, who are you? Like, who is this person that's sitting in front of me? And what are the things that authentically make you happy, that make you feel at peace, that make you feel the most serene, that give back? What are the things that recharge you? What are the things that fill your cup? How do you receive love? And if you're able to look after yourself in that way, then you're able to give much more and be there for your family in a whole different way because you're looking after yourself. And, some people call it self-love. I just call it understanding your needs. And it has to start with, who are you and what are the things that really make you happy? So if being a working mom is everything that makes you happy, that's great. But there's also you, the individual, you, the person that has other needs, whether that's intellectual stimulation or physical stimulation. Do you need to be out? Do you need some solitude? How much solitude do you need? Do you need a 15-minute break every, a few times a day just so you can keep your sanity, just so you can recharge your energy? Or do you need more of that? Do you need to be able to take a break and get a sitter, ask your partner to look after your kids with you, or help your family members support as well so that you can have your needs looked after? So it's a matter of both. It's a matter of understanding yourself and also having your needs met, but also understanding your unique formula for happiness and success. And then giving yourself permission to define a whole new life, whether that's within the conventions of what you were raised with or to break tradition and go beyond and to be fearless about it because you have to be. It's your life. You get one shot. This is your life to be happy. And I really believe that's what a midlife crisis is. It's like this unraveling because people don't know who they are and what makes them happy. And so they get to this point and they think, is this all there is? Like, this can't be it. I wake up and I do this grind every single day. And it's like Groundhog Day. You just repeat it and you repeat it and you repeat it. There's got to be some give there. Something has to shift. And that shift is, who are you and what makes you happy? And really dig into that. And so that's what I help people with. And the life block quiz is the first step. And then the whole Rewire mindset system actually takes you through a step-by-step approach to unlocking what doesn't work, understanding who you are, and being able to articulate that in as many, in as many like chunkable moments, like hours per day. How many hours per day of solitude do you need? How many hours per day do you need to be social? Do you need to play? Do you need family time? How many hours per day do you need intellectual stimulation or physical exercise? And so we really help you map out, wow, what are the things that really make you tick? And when you can see that on paper and then you can compare it to your life now, it's pretty stark. You can see you have like just such clarity. You can see like what's missing. And then we get into, what are your values? So your values are what's important to you. So if you're building your life around, let's say, what was important to your mother, or what her views of motherhood and womanhood are and what a life should be, well, that's great if that's what made her happy. But, then you need to understand who you are in this construct and what are the things that work for you. And also, what are the things that don't? And so you get to pull that apart and really start taking, measured steps towards your own happiness, towards defining what that is for you, and then creating a life and building a life around that.
It's so true. And you touched on something that I was actually was figuring out our needs as moms is much more difficult. You definitely have to be intentional about it, because you're constantly having to put other people's needs before yours, because they can't do it for themselves, right? These little tiny
Yes.
humans, and we're trying to be almost wearing it like a badge of honor that I give so much of myself to you. I think that's where you get these kids that grow up with this guilt, this mom guilt that they've put into them, that they can, and it's because I've given so much of myself for you. I gave up my entire life for you. And it's like, well, they didn't ask you to do that. They want you to
Yeah,
be happy. Our kids want us at our best. They want us to be our happiest. And so
we do.
I'm so excited that you touched on this, because it is such a common theme now. And I'm so glad that so many people, podcasts, everything out here are screaming
Mhm.
this from the rooftops, that self love, or whatever that looks like for you, taking care of yourself is the most important. Putting your oxygen mask on first is the most important. It's not
Yes.
selfish. It's selfish not to, honestly, because your kids get the worst of you. They get what's
Yeah.
left
Yeah.
after being burned out and exhausted and overstimulated and not eating well and not sleeping well, and they get
Mhm.
what's left. Like, no one wants that. Imagine that if you were picking a partner in life, and you're like, okay, I can have the one that puts back into themselves. They're happy, they're rested, they're joyful, they're in touch with their feminine side, right? All
Mhm.
these things. Then you look at this husk of a woman that lots of moms are. Honestly, they are
Yeah.
just this husk of what's left. And imagine picking that as your partner. Like, no, thank you.
Well, yes. But also, what example, or like what are you subconsciously teaching your children at the same time, that they need to
Right.
self-sacrifice everything to be a parent, and where is the looking after yourself as a human? I lived in Europe for some time, and they had a very different view of how they raise children. You're going to a restaurant, you bring the kids with you. They can sleep in the baby carriage. It's fine. I think North Americans approach parenthood a little bit differently, and it's, like everything revolves around the kids, and it should to a point, but you get to still be a person. You get to still be an adult engaging in this world and exposing them to lots of different things, and physical exercise being a priority, and fresh air being a priority, and play being a priority, and managing your emotions is important, and, discipline and structure are important. So teaching them all of these things is also wonderful. Teaching them that you should have a passion. Everybody should have a passion that they're working towards, and knowing your why, or the concept of giving back. And we all need all of those things. So it doesn't mean just because you're a stay-at-home mom and you're doing, you're living in this little box, that that's the ideal way to expose them to the world as well. So we have to keep in mind that being our best selves is also teaching them how to enjoy those things, and how to calibrate, and how to recognize those things for themselves as they go through life.
Yeah, we traveled to over 40 countries with our little boys. We started when they were 2 and 5, and then,
Mhm.
went on. And it was exactly that. We had this question keep popping up. Well, they're not going to remember this. Why are you doing this with them being so young? They're not going to remember this. And we're like, this is for us. This is our life. Like, they don't get
Yes.
to choose what we do. This is
Yeah.
our life. They're along on our ride right now, right? When they're adults, they get to do what they want to do, but they're along on our ride now. And obviously we love doing it with them, but it's people don't understand that that's a something you can do. It's not being selfish.
Mhm.
That's like you said, we
Absolutely.
get one life. My husband's Instagram is actually one life, so live. So it's it's so obvious, but not everybody's doing it. Do you know what I
Yes.
mean? And I think
Well,
it's
you're
because what's
Australian.
yes, I am.
You're Australian, so
I
you're a
bet he is
face.
too.
Well, yeah, I mean, you find each other, right? So, I mean, typical traits of a stallion archetype is that you enjoy your freedom. So, you may have been alone early on in life, but you then start to really appreciate your freedom and liberation from structure. And so, look at how you live your life. You're in Alaska taping a podcast, which is
Right.
phenomenal. I mean, how many people would do that? It's amazing.
Right. What's the saying? Because it's like you have to, I'm saying we have to be intentional because it has to hurt enough to change, right? That seems like that's the
Mm,
common thread. I don't, it's not bothering me enough yet. So I'm fine, right? But once it gets to the point where it hurts enough your body to, with women, it's usually, what is it? Their fight or flight has been going for so long, even if they didn't know it, that their body just shuts down, right? That's what you hear the common,
yeah, you basically go into burnout or
yeah,
overload.
you go into
And
burnout.
yeah, I mean, fight or flight is real, not just for working moms, but for people in the career world, in the business world as well. Whether you're a careerist or you're an entrepreneur, it's the same, they're the same challenges. If you're not looking after yourself, it's like wear and tear on your car. You know, fight or flight centuries ago when we were living in the wild, bless you.
Thank you.
Um, that was very needed because if you were actually running from a predator, you needed that fight or flight response. It acts like a gas pedal in your car. And so you get that rush of adrenaline to flee off to safety. And that's great. But when we went off to safety, after a few moments, our brains were able to signal our central nervous system and back to our body and say, okay, there's no danger anymore. You're safe. You can return to calm. But how do you do that in today's busy world, especially if you're a mom and you don't even get 5 minutes to go to the restroom on your own. There's no such thing as doors. You can't lock a door with a child around. They're just gonna come right through. They're gonna barrel on through and take what they need. And you have to learn how to gauge. So anything requiring your attention, I think today is like a trigger to your fight or flight response, whether it's your phone. I mean, how many different outlets and social media channels? We used to have one landline, and then voicemail came on board, then call waiting came on board. But now we have smartphones. So we have how many social media channels? We have how many ways for people to leave you a voice message, an email, a text message, a WhatsApp message. It's insane. And every ping on my phone triggers a little stress response in me. So over the years, we have unknowingly strengthened our stress muscles, if you will, like our response to stress. And we have had no awareness that we actually have a calm response that's just as strong and just as vital. And so part of the work I teach is how to tap back into that to trigger that. It's called the parasympathetic nervous system. And so the opposite of fight or flight, which is a stress response, is called the rest and digest state. And so there are ways you can trigger that response in your body to signal yourself to go back to calm, that it's safe, that everything is okay. And then as you go through your day intentionally, you can start to say, is this a real priority, or does mommy need some me time right now? Or can I go and do this? And, is everything manageable right now? So compartmentalizing and designing your life in a more structured way that allows you to address things as they come up as real priorities or not, and being able to shift in how you balance your energy also helps you balance your emotional state. And that's huge because then you have to deal with, you're dealing with things like willpower and emotional resilience. I mean, you can't be in charge of your emotions or your temper if you're exhausted and you're running on empty all the time.
Yeah, imagine a child having a meltdown. You know, it's
Mhm.
a similar thing. We're adults. We have that. Why do we make sure our kids get naps? Why do we make sure our kids get, the food that they need? Why do we make sure it's like we're living it through them, but we're not acknowledging it for ourselves? That we're just imagine you're still this tiny human and you need it too. We're all human. And that's why you had me at hello with your book. You had me at hello with the meditation, the whole beginning about how to, and that was actually the question I asked, and you answered further into the book was, well, okay, how do you do this? How do I do this? Because, for people that are busy and going and going and going and don't know how to train themselves to meditate, it is an intentional practice. It is something you have to train yourself to be able to do, right? Sitting still for a minute with my own thoughts. I joke about this with my ladies on our Zoom calls is I'll ask a question and then the silence, I'm just like, I can't, right? I'm just like, I have to fill the silence. And so that's a practice for me is just to
Yes.
sit and just,
Mhm.
whew. So I love that you get very deep into that and it's on your app. It's part of your Get Zen app as well, right? Some meditation
Yes. Well,
practices.
yes, well, we shifted the app and we just put everything on for free. We created a YouTube channel now. So the Get Zen app is shut down, but we actually put all of the meditations on YouTube just because I wanted people to have them and not everyone's, used to using multiple apps. So we created a YouTube channel with meditations and podcasts. And so now it's sort of an educational and meditation channel. But I also wanted to give people lots of different ways to do it because I, like you, wasn't the sort of person that could sit still or had any interest in it. I'm type A. I'm too driven to ruminate and constantly be thinking. So I had to give myself something to focus on. So I use my meditation time to intentionally open up my channels and intentionally focus on different feelings and then focus on different parts of my life. So I use it like a guided visualization, almost like a guided meditation. And then all of the meditations I did, I actually created. And so there's one for deep sleep, there's one to get focused, there's one to, I call it get goals, but it actually it has cues to help you focus on different aspects of your life. First your physical health and your primary relationship and your family and your friendship circles and then your work life. So you can really visualize those goals because that's another part that's so important is really you're mentally rehearsing, and as you do that, you're rewiring your brain and you're shifting your mindset to what is it you want to create versus focusing on the busyness or the stress or the lack of what you don't have. Is tapping into a whole new way of thinking and feeling, which is what do I want to create for my life and imagining it as though it's already here. Because what you're doing is you're calming the brain and the central nervous system and you're rewiring the brain, retraining yourself and retraining your mindset to a whole new way of being, it's really magical once you tap into it.
Yeah, because everything with creating change is intentionality and mindfulness, right? And we don't
Mhm.
have that normally we're running with the 95% that's just go, go, go. I can scratch my nose. I can drive my car. I can
Yeah.
drink my coffee while I'm driving my car. It's autopilot. And it's like you said it perfectly. The Groundhog Day, once your
Mhm.
feet touch the floor, you're already exhausted because your brain knows what to expect. It's like another day, right?
Yeah.
And if you
Yeah.
can shake up that 95% and kind of start tweaking things, but that takes intentionality
It
and
does.
actually being purposeful in change,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Well, even more than that, I really wanted to give people the educational tool. So, what is the science behind, when you say 95% subconscious or unconscious mind, 5% conscious mind, what does that actually mean? What does it feel like to be on autopilot versus being intentional? And so, if you wake up and you're in that already always way of thinking, which is, oh, I'm so stressed, I don't know if I'm going to get through my day, we already know how that day goes. We've done them 1,000 times at this point. What does it feel like to wake up instead and just take 15 minutes to start your day off feeling peaceful, feeling grounded, feeling centered, to imagine your day going easily and effortlessly, to imagine your meetings going beautifully, to imagine all of the right resources coming to you when you need them, all the right mentors and coaches and friendships and support coming to you and being available to you, to imagine the finances and the solutions showing up. As you start your day in that frame of mind, things just start to unfold much more naturally, much more. It's almost like time slows down a little bit, and you can't quite explain it, but the sunlight looks brighter, your meetings go more smoothly, music sounds better. It just shifts your mindset from, I'm already tired, I don't know if I can do this, to, oh, today is a whole new day. We're going to do things differently today. How do I want to feel instead? I want to feel peaceful. I want to feel capable. I want to feel certain in knowing that I can do whatever I need to do today and that I will not be swayed. That's a very different mindset to start your day off. And the more you practice starting your day off in that way, you're retraining the brain back to balance. And it's a much stronger place to begin, whether you want to start a new venture, whether it's a new diet or new exercise routine, or a new structure in your day, or maybe you want to start a side hustle. Maybe you are a stay-at-home mom, but that's not all. That's not enough for you. Maybe you want to start a little side business. You want to become, an Etsy store owner, or you want to, start a copywriting business at home. There's so many things we can do now, especially post-pandemic. We realize the world is actually largely virtual. We can do so many things online. And so now the world of opportunities has really shifted and opened up for us. And so if you start off your day in a mindset that today I'm going to create something wonderful, the possibilities are limitless. And when you start your day off in that mode, the likelihood that you're actually going to achieve something new and different and be able to take on that new challenge is much, much greater than if you start off in autopilot.
Absolutely. You're open. You're open to abundance rather than lack. You're open to being curious rather than fearful. Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely. I do
absolutely.
this, so I know I didn't do it because I was coached to. I did it naturally because I figured out that having my coffee every morning, so I get up an hour before the rest of my house, right? It's
Mhm.
something that's easy for me because I do know I have women in my group that they're like, that's painful. I would rather be bludgeoned than get out of bed earlier than I need to, right? And
Yeah.
but I figured out that that hour of just quiet, having my
Mhm.
coffee or doing what I need to do for me. And now, since reading yours, I'm going to be even more intentional. I'm going to take it one step further and meditate. And
Yeah.
I want to see the results. I want to see, okay, if this is the action, I want to see the results. So now you've got me super curious into this
Mhm.
6 weeks, and I'm going to dive into it. Okay, if you will bear with me, I want to bring some scenarios to you because I'd
Sure.
love to hear what your perspective would be on this. So imagine, we'll call her female A, comes to you and she
Mhm.
has this concept around her of, I don't know how to take action in owning my own happiness. I am kind of swayed back and forth to what my husband wants me to do and what my family wants me to do and I think I should be doing, right?
Mhm.
This
Yeah.
person that does all of these self-help and thinks that she's learning herself and tuning into her emotions and all these things, but yet she's just kind of blowing in the wind of other people's versions of her happiness. How
Yes.
do you get that person to lock into action?
Well, I'm gonna answer it in two parts. The taking
Okay.
action piece, I think, is the easiest. I think uh, the acknowledgement or finding a gauge for how to know when something is authentically speaking to you, when something is lighting you up, is the game changer. That's the missing piece in this formula. So, you know, as a coach, you get trained in reading people's physiology. So you get trained in reading pupil dilation and the tension on the forehead. And, when somebody is tense, the way that the light shines on your face and tension in the lip is incredible. You're watching people's, the tension in the shoulders. Are they hunched forward? Are they leaned back? Are they breathing from their upper chest? Is it, frantic, anxious breathing? Are they calm and relaxed? And so, I'm used to reading people's physiology, but I'm going to teach you a quick trick on how to know if you're lit up. And so if somebody's telling you, oh, go try this thing, I think this will be really good for you. If it's not feeling right, if it's not exciting you, you're going to know that. If you start speaking about something and you immediately lighten up, you feel your energy come up, you feel your eyes go brighter, and you're starting to talk more excitedly, and you're starting to be, joyful, and just the anticipation of the joy and excitement is actually inspiring you. Here's the thing. If you're lit up, it's for you. If you're not lit up, it's somebody else's version of what happy is. So pay attention to the things that make you feel the most alive. That's step number one. Then the taking action part is going to be much easier. Then for you to take action, you have to ask yourself, have you done it before? If not, do you know someone that's done it? And seek out their counsel. Seek out a coach or a friend or a mentor or somebody who can guide you through. For example, if you want to try a brand new physical health routine, fitness routine, and you've never, let's say, dropped from 25% body fat to 20% body fat, well, find someone who has. Find a nutritional expert, find a fitness consultant, and have them help you construct a plan and a way for you to measure your success as you get there, because the brain likes little micro goals. So there's two types of goal achievement. There's two types of visualization. You can focus on the outcome. That sometimes is too big for some people. Like, I want to lose that last 10 pounds, don't we all? But like, I don't know a single woman that's always in her perfect way. She always wants to lose another 5 or 10 pounds, right? It's like every single woman. So if you've never done it before, that outcome might be too lofty because you failed too many times at it, or you've tried it and haven't succeeded. Make it a smaller goal. Make it a 1 pound goal, right? So you break it up into little micro goals. And as you achieve that, the little reward centers in your brain are saying, oh, we can accomplish this. We did 1, we can do 2. And when you do 2, you can do 3. And when you do 3, you can do 4. And so you're setting yourself up now for success, and you're retraining your brain to say, okay, I hit the next milestone. What's the next? What's the next? So now you've figured out what lights you up. You figured out how to take action, and you have a plan to achieve it. Now you can do it.
Okay. I love that. I love that in so many ways, because our last month we just came out of foundational habits and 1%, the 1% goals, 1% habits that just tweak you along. All right. Yeah. Okay. So my next scenario, the empath, this person who just needs to take on everybody else's trauma and drama, thinking that that's the way of being a good friend. That's the way of being a good person. That's the way of being. This person can't separate that other people's lives are not her life, right? How do you break that cycle of, I guess it's a course correcting, right? It's being able to realize that this is not yours, this is theirs, but still be a good friend, a good family member, a good person.
Well, that's a tricky question to ask, to answer. So firstly, we have to think about the whole concept of emotional contagion. Emotions are contagious. So if you live within 1 mile of somebody happy that you have regular contact with, you're 7% more likely to be happy. And the same is the reverse. So if you have a lot of unhappy and stressful and angry and anxious people constantly requiring your energy, they become like energy vampires. It's very difficult to manage and regulate yourself when you have this sort of a dynamic in your life. So the first thing you need to do is figure out, what is taking your energy. And nobody's going to die if you say, I'm sorry, I don't have time to take your call right now. You're important to me. I'll call you later. It's just a matter of how you prioritize people. And what I've come to realize is I fought so hard for my peace of mind and my happiness and my sense of prosperity that I don't want that interrupted by the wrong energies. And so I've had to, not just instruct myself, but also be vigilant with my clients and say, you have to be like militant almost in protecting your energy, because if you don't, nobody else is going to do it for you. And, moms know this more than anything. You're giving so much of yourself every single day. You have to find ways of recharging. So in the positive psychology world, the concept is called ego depletion. It's not about ego. It's about the fact that we are energetic beings and we only have a finite amount of energy each day. So just like your phone and the battery on your phone, it has to recharge. You don't have an unlimited supply. You can't wake up exhausted from one day to the next and just keep going. You're going to not just pull your hair out, but it's going to result in long-term health issues. You're going to have high blood pressure. You're going to have chronic inflammation and pain. You're going to have injuries that are resistant to healing. You're going to have autoimmune disorders, inflammatory disorders, heart disease, stroke, like the list goes on. If you learn just to manage your energy differently and be really in charge of who's allowed to come into your life and demand energy from you and who you're willing to give it to, then it's a game changer. Once you start looking after your own energy, your health improves because you're looking after yourself, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. So I'll give you an easy 3-step boundary conversation, which I like to share with my clients. And is, so if somebody comes to you with an ask or a request that just, this is the sort of person that always comes at you with a lot. Even if it's just a phone call, you see their name registering on your phone, you get to ask yourself, do I have this to give right now? Yes or no? As in, let's say somebody's calling you and you know what's going to happen in the next hour. They're going to go off on some emotional rant. It's going to take an hour of your time. It's going to drain you of some energy. So the first question you ask is, do I have it to give? Yes or no? The second question is, am I willing to give it right now? Yes or no? And number 3 is, under what conditions am I willing to give it? So you're not just giving selflessly. You're not just giving endlessly. You can say, for example, some of my dearest friends throughout my life have been real energy vampires. I didn't want to cut them out of my life, but I had to learn how to limit my time with them. So I've learned that with some social relationships, seeing them once a month, more than enough time. If I don't have the time to speak to them on the phone, send them a quick message. I love you. Are you okay? Is everything fine? Just in a really busy week right now. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Life went on. Our friendship continued. But I got to protect my energy. So ask those 3 questions anytime you're completely, when you find yourself inundated with this sort of an energy. I wouldn't call that an empath. I would call that an energy vampire, by the way. So we're going to reframe the question a little bit. Because I think an empath is somebody who feels a great deal. And so you take on the emotions of other people. And we evolved to have these things called mirror neurons. So we evolved to be empathetic creatures so that we could build social connections. Now we have to learn how to draw healthy boundaries around these types of people that are taking energy from us. And so ask yourself those 3 questions. Do I have it to give? Am I willing to give it? And under what conditions will I feel okay to be able to give it? And give it on your terms. You'll find that really, really helps.
I could not have loved that answer anymore. That was exactly what I was hoping for when I asked that question. And actually, it brings me to the chapter where you were talking about energy, assess your energy output, right?
Yes.
I think that's in the eliminate the noise and what's blocking you, week 2. But yes. I love that you ask yourself, is this happy? Is this easy?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Coming at every relationship, every scenario, everything in your life, because thinking of your energy, how much you have to give, your 100% battery life, right? Is this going to make me happy? And is this going to be easy? I love your stance on that. Where was my... This takes me into...
I'm a big fan of simple and efficient answers. So if it feels good... And, happy and easy are my 2 favorite speeds. So if it feels relaxing to go out with someone and they don't take any energy from you, and you either have, you're balanced in your energy or they give you energy, that's someone you want to spend time with. right? If all you
Yeah,
have in your life is people that take energy from you, you're just going to go from exhausted to more exhausted, and there's no life there. You barely have time to
absolutely.
enjoy it if you're exhausted.
Absolutely. Will you talk to me
Mhm.
more about the comfort zone? Your definition in the book of what you talk about the comfort zone. I really loved that.
Yeah.
I want to talk about shaking out of the comfort zone. And I think we kind of did touch on this a little bit when we were
Mhm.
talking about being intentional with our 95% unconscious and having to make the changes, whatever. But you
Yeah.
explained the comfort zone so perfectly to what it feels like when women find me, when they come to me, when they first get to me. This is why, and this is where they're at, is your definition of the comfort zone.
Well, I think your very first question led into that perfectly because, if somebody else had a view of how life should be, and now you're suddenly living this life under somebody else's construct, well, that's the comfort zone. So you think you're doing everything you should be doing, and yet something's not working. You're not feeling fulfilled. You're not feeling satisfied. You're not feeling peaceful. You're not feeling joyful in your life. And you're in a state of dis-ease. And so when you're in that state, if you let it continue on for too long, you're going to end up exhausted and irritable. And in a way, you touched on this earlier in the conversation as well. Not that you have to have a certain level of suffering, but you have to be uncomfortable enough to want to change it. So when is the day? If I could coach someone through it, I would say, tell me about a goal, something that excites you. What is it that you really want to create for your life that you don't have in your life right now? And they might give me, let's say, I want to buy a vacation home. I want some place to take my kids every weekend, or where we can spend our summers as a place of peace and joy for us, where we can really play together and have quality time as a family. And I would say, okay, I want you to imagine a crystal clear moment. And I would create a visual exercise for them. I want you to imagine turning the key in the lock and opening that door and seeing, let's say, the ocean straight out in front of you. I want you to imagine now just taking a deep breath and feeling that feeling of relief and peace and serenity coming over you. I want you to imagine walking through the house to the back door and opening the back door and taking your shoes off and stepping on the beach. What does that feel like for you? And they'll explain it, and I'll say, you have to get a really clear visual and auditory and kinesthetic feeling. And I'll say, what are you seeing in that moment? You're seeing the ocean, you're seeing your kids run to come and meet you. What are you feeling in that moment? Oh, I'm just feeling peaceful and feeling excited that we finally arrived here. I'm feeling excited to get to spend this week with my family. And what are you hearing? Are you hearing the sounds of them giggle? Are you hearing the sounds of the ocean? And once they get through this whole visualization, I'll say to them, okay, so how would it make you feel to actually achieve all of that? Oh my God, I would be beyond grateful. I would feel so at peace that all my financial worries are behind me, that we've been able to hit this milestone, that we could buy a vacation home. I know now that, I had set along all of these little goals in between, that my kids' educations were paid for before we get that vacation home. And I know that all my financial worries are put to bed. And I would say, great. And how does that feel? Oh, amazing. Just absolutely amazing. More peaceful than I've ever felt, more joyful than I've ever felt. Great. When would you like to start feeling that way? And then they go, oh, because it immediately puts them back into where they are now, which is stressed and anxious about money and worrying. And so they realize, oh, I want to go back and feel that thing. Because once you're there, you don't want to come back to this feeling of discomfort again. Because this is the place that makes you feel trapped, where you're really suffering in the day to day, where you're living that Groundhog Day. And so I think that's the quickest way to pull them out of it, is really imagine a life. What is the quality of life you would have if there were no rules, if there were no limits, if there were no restrictions? What would that be like for you? And it's different for everyone. Maybe it's a mobile home for some people. Maybe it's a beach house for someone else. Maybe it's in the mountains for someone else. Or maybe it's just having, a modest home with a pool, or something, some wonderful place to raise your kids in a town with your family around. Whatever it is for you, get really into that moment of what would life feel like if you didn't have any worries, if you had all of the joy and the peace and the excitement and everything you wanted to accomplish in your life, and really get into that frame of mind. Then you'll start to see how uncomfortable you are here. And every day you wake up here versus there is going to just reiterate, oh my God, it's time for change.
I think you just wrapped up this episode beautifully. I think I have so many more notes that I could go in and in and in on, but I think you just wrapped that up so beautifully that thank you. Thank you for that. So thank you for correcting me on your Get Zen app that is now a YouTube channel. I'm so excited to go to the YouTube channel, and I'm so excited to send everybody there. We'll get that in the show notes. Where else is the best place for these listeners to find you?
Well, they can go to 6weekstohappy.com. And we also have a little free giveaway for your guests and your listeners as well. They can take the life block quiz to see what's stopping them now. So all you have to do is you can go to 6weekstohappy.com or lifeblockquiz.com and get started on your road to happiness and success today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And like I said, this is going to be a monthly topic for my community, the Revitalized Sisterhood. So we are going to all be diving into your book, and I can't wait for that. Thank you so much for giving me your time here, and your perspective has been amazing, has totally blown my mind, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, Gina. I appreciate it.